Hello again. Good afternoon, and thank God for this opportunity. You know, I always thank for the opportunity to just to be present with you all and to share knowledge. Least we perish for lack of it. And that scripture, Hosea 4:6, says that. We will perish for lack of knowledge. Okay, I thank this young man, Norm. I always thank him. He always keeping me good, keeping me together, for giving me the space. And my crew, Lula, Sheila, Juanita, and my little one, Elijah and Halim. They are they experts in keeping the music going. Not the music, but the promo piece for me. So I thank all of y'all. Y'all know me. I'm Ruby Williams Shivers, your unapologetic amateur, still looking for experts. They're coming. I define the experts as those who have studied all that is of us through Africanism, diagnose and develop solutions for us. Because to be an expert, you got to go through some series of stuff that you need to study about Africa. The cures for what ails us. We're getting there, though. I'm so pleased to have this great brother as my co-host for this month, Professor Kamal Kenyatta, Professor of African Studies at Lehigh University and Northampton Community College, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Before I go any further, though, I don't know if you all saw me on this show last week. I hope you did. A young lady, Tiffany Barker, at 9 o'clock on this same channel, BKS1 Radio. She was phenomenal. She made me feel phenomenal. Well, she made me feel so queenly. See, that's what the young people do for you, if you know your place. And when I say that, this is the only, maybe not the only one, but the only area where age is not a negative. People respect you at this age because they know that you have knowledge, or you should have it. And what I think Hosea said, that the knowledge come with age, something to that effect. Well, that is true. I have the wisdom, not knowledge, wisdom comes with age. And I have the wisdom, to know that I don't have all the knowledge. You see, that's what wisdom does for you. So I'm so thankful to Tiffany. I just love her. She's a great person. Her podcast comes on every Tuesday, 9 o'clock. You just got to watch it. And when you watch it, you come back to me and let me know if I'm telling you what it really is. It's a great, great show. Yeah? So, Professor, we're going to talk about our books today. Your book, The White People Show. Now, when I first heard the title, I thought to myself, now that might just offend some people. But when I read the title of two white authors, one, Tim Wise, he's one of my favorite authors, his book entitled White Like Me. And then there's the white lady on MSNBC, she's a commentator, Joan Walsh, whose book is entitled What's Wrong with White People. Well, then I thought, maybe this is the beginning of an epic book title. Tell me, Professor, what your title entails.
Well, good afternoon, Sister Ruby. It's good to be with you again. As always, I love you because you have that energy and, like you said, that wisdom that comes only with age and experience. The White People Show basically is speaking to the issue of a misunderstanding of what racism is, and that we are always bombarded with whiteness. It's a show that's going on. When you look around, particularly if you live in America, now if you go to the islands or some of the other places, but it's still there as well. I don't want to minimize that. We are bombarded with everything white. They win at everything, the boardroom, the courthouse, the business world. They lead, even though we play a lot in the sports, we dominate the sports, but we don't really control the sports. And when you turn on the television or you go to the movies, it's always stuff about them, their problems, their accomplishments, their achievements, no matter where we are, we're constantly bombarded with billboards. When authors are mentioned, when actors are mentioned, when musicians are mentioned, it's as if no one else exists but white people. And when they don't exist, or when you point it out to them, they get offended in some cases that we're pointing out. And I say that they, in general, are a narcissistic
Mm-hmm.
race of people. It's all about them. It's all about them. The case in point is looking at what happens when we talk about our history, or we want to have our history included. Then they say, well, why do you, it's already included. Why do you have to have that? Does that mean that you're going to eliminate us? They're afraid that we're going to take them out.
Yeah.
When we say Black History Month, they're like, why Black people got to have a month? They can't see that every single month is focused
Exactly. It is.
on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a white people show for 12 months actually, but
Yeah.
at least we get some
One little part of it,
part of it for 1 month,
yes.
but it's all about them.
Yeah.
And the key thing about my book is that I deal with the issue of racism because what white people have done, a white power structure, I should say, because there are many white people who are, they get it. Like
Yeah, they
you
do.
mentioned Tim Mize, there are many others. But what the issue is this meaning of racism. I've seen over the years how the definition of racism has been watered down and made to appear as if it's everybody. And that is part of the nature of
Exactly.
racism. It doesn't want to be identified. And when it is identified, it transforms itself so that it's not recognizable. So
Right.
the latest transformation, as I see it, is that they I want to say everybody is racist.
And that,
Everybody can be
yeah,
racist.
the
And I'm
same as
like,
with
no.
same as with slavery. That's why we need to change the name, redefine that, because everybody could
Mhm.
claim it and say, okay, we're other folks, you enslave yourselves. You know, one of the things they say. Well, Africans have enslaved each other, and this and that. So they could then want to take that definition of slavery, that name slavery, and just kind of spread it across the board, and everybody can include themselves in it. That's why we need to redefine what it was that happened to us. Because apparently it wasn't slavery if everybody else can claim it, and we know that this is the first thing or the only thing, the only likeness. Well, there's no likeness to what we went through, but there's the only we experienced. What we experienced was unlike anything else. So it has to be another definition for it. But I'm sorry, go on. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think, well, in terms of that definition, the best I've heard is from Sister Marimba Ani, that is
My
Ma'afa,
upper.
that,
Mm-hmm.
this was a disaster
Yeah.
that came upon us that's lasted for hundreds of years, and we're
Yeah.
still involved in the Ma'afa.
Right. Right.
I'm
Genocide,
only
really.
beginning to say that because, see, before the Jewish people, before Holocaust came out, that word already existed, but they took that word to apply to their particular situation,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and they repeated that.
Yeah.
See, the key is the repetition.
Yeah, and
Um,
identify what they say they went through. So that's there's nothing wrong
mhm,
with that, and that's what we should do. Identify exactly what we went through. And I'm going to get
right.
back to you because that's what we will be talking about today, our books. And I've just got to talk a little bit about my book today and why shouldn't I cry? It
Okay.
couldn't be a more fitting title to explain what's going on in the world today and why it, bring relief just to be able to cry. And as a matter of fact, when I released the book in the throes of the pandemic, it gave credence to how I later identify myself, unapologetic amateur, looking for experts. See, I'm not into the politics of the pandemic. You know, some say if it was or if it weren't. But for what it's worth, it was said to have killed over 2 million people over a 2 year period of time. And the point I'm making, as with my book, some things require expertise in a particular area. And for those who were fearful of what was happening, they didn't go around looking for just anybody for solutions. Likewise, why should what we went through over the 200 years, plus another 200 of Jim Crowism and ongoing racism, certainly would require those who have studied, in depth, the ramification of something such as heinous as slavery or ma'afa, that and anything that had ever happened to human being, or animals for that reason, the kind of thing that we went through, there should be a reason that we would identify it and talk about it. As you said, they want to try to take it away and make light of the fact that it is what it is. But we know for a fact, and that's why it's so important for me as a host of this particular podcast to keep disseminating information. I tell people, someone asked me the other day, well, why can't we have sort of a debate on your show? I said, my show is non-debatable. It is what it is. There was slavery. There was Jim Crowism, and still is. There was, racism. So that's not debatable. Now, what may become debatable is how we're going to take care of it. And that's why I come in with the experts, as it were, But we're getting there.
Yes.
Yep.
It takes some thinking, some clear thinking and correctiveness. I know that in terms of they're always going to attack us. They're never going to be satisfied with us or any other people that are brown or yellow, including Black people. They're never going to accept us because they see themselves, and this is the essential part, they see and understand themselves to be superior, better than everybody else.
Well,
and this is why they're constantly bombarding us with their images of them and their stories and so forth, because they're the most important. We are superior. Your stuff is like, oh, that's nice, but really here.
But see, until we understand that from the level of just until we understand it from its inception, how it came about and why it came about, we know we were brought over here not as slaves, because we were not slaves. We were enslaved once we were over here. But one of the things that we're going to concentrate on now is how we're going to get our experts together, those that I call experts. Because, see, some of us know all this, and many of us don't know all this. Because when they hear us, even our own people sometimes will say, well, that's just an excuse. Or they will say, well, when we'll get over it. And we got to come back with, well, we really can't get over it until we get through it. But then they'll begin to wonder, how can we get through it? That's why I come up with the idea of experts. I want us to concentrate on, although many of us have experienced, or we know, we have read about, we have heard about the history of us as Black folks. It is the same as I use the analogy of the virus. When that thing came in, and some of us had a little bit of history of viruses. We have heard about all the viruses before, the one that they say had not come around in 100 or so years. But what we didn't know was the solution to get to what ailed us at that particular time. So we, if you notice, none of us went out looking for sports people. We didn't go out looking for entertainers. We didn't go out looking for even the president of the United States. At that time, that was twice indicted, whatever he is. He came out with injecting bleach. So we knew, although he was probably the most powerful man in the entire world, he didn't know how to cure what we was going through at that time. So that's why when I come on this show each time, I have to kind of explain it, because a lot of people really don't know when I say unapologetic amateur looking for experts. I mean, those that have gone through the trouble, for lack of a better word. They're going through the whole issue of studying not only what we went through, the history of what we went through, but now how to go and diagnose, first point out, diagnose, and try to get some cure for what we went through. There are two books that I want everyone to read if they can get these books and pick them up. One is Post-Traumatic Slavery. I know you know that book, Post-Traumatic Slavery, by Dr. Joy DeGruy. And then the other one is by the Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Wilson.
The ISIS Papers.
Right, the ISIS Papers. They delve into, from a psychological perspective, what we went through. When I talk about the syndromes, that is what I'm talking about. Those syndromes, there was syndromes created around our experiences. And sometimes we don't know why some of us are acting the way we're acting or not acting. I hear often about us not having businesses. We don't have this and we don't have that, as though it's our fault or as though we don't want that. Any human being would want what the next person want. I know when I first came to, I came from Florida to Elizabeth, New Jersey. When I got to Elizabeth, New Jersey, there were black stores on every corner. There was I remember the Yours, Mine, and Ours was a black spot. And I remember Supreme Club was like. My brother had a black restaurant on one corner. There was other bars, obviously. There was churches on the corner, but it was a black establishment. You go into Elizabeth now, and you will not find that anywhere, And it's not to blame the ones who came in and got it, but to understand that you won't give them more credit for having it and look at us and say, well, why we don't have it? Because we don't want it. That doesn't even make sense when you think about it.
Right.
Now, I moved to Plainfield after a few years. When I got to Plainfield, there was black establishments almost on every corner also. I remember the black bookstore that was on the corner. I remember the restaurants that was on the corner. I remember the clothing stores. I used to get all my African garbs from, was on, in the blocks. You come to Plainfield today and you won't find that. Now, and again, see, the idea is to create us against each other as brown people, black people. But I know better than that. I know our Hispanic brothers and sisters that I see on those stores. It's not because that they are better than us or know better business than us or can do better than we do or whatever excuse that people give to us or think we're making the excuse. It's just because we are the ones, if you think about it seriously, have fought the fight for everyone. So whatever things, whatever the conduit that they're going through, or we're responsible for that. Sometimes they don't understand that. There was a brother who, when my grandson was at the barbershop recently, and there was a brother that was from Africa, one of the countries. But he explained to my grandson, and of course my grandson got a visceral experience behind it, feelings behind it. But he said to him, the African Americans are not productive. They are not motivated because they have all the opportunities, he said to him, but they don't really make use of them, make good of them. Because he said his family came over and they all were professionals. They were lawyers and doctors and blah, blah, blah. So my grandson came to me just before I start writing my book, and he told me about the incident. I said, well, see, that's indicative of how the information has gotten out, and we process it wrongly. He doesn't realize whatever he has, or whatever any of them have, I don't care where they come from or where they are. We, the Africans and Americans, have felt the brunt of trying to create ways for all of everybody. And it wasn't by choice. I mean, we were sort of made to do that, and we did that. We took up the hammer. And so what we did, what we are trying to fight, we were fighting the good fight with the dogs on us. Many of our people are in jail today for being at the forefront of all that we are recognizing as that we have today. So those are the kind. That's the kind of information I'm just saying. It's so hard to impart to people and put it in perspective. Once that happened, you know that then there was things that happen around that. If you're going through all that, there got to be syndromes created. There just got to be something that's going to create havoc amongst your people. And if you don't know that, and if you're not wanting to feel that, you're going to think that you're the worst then. You're going to think that you're not doing it because you're lazy. You're going to think that you're not doing it because you don't have the skills or whatever. You got to know what happened along the route, from Africa to where you are now in order to sort of gain some momentum in terms of how we're going to get better. And anybody can't do that. I keep going back to the expert. We're going to have to get them together in a group. We're going to have to get them together in one place. We're going to have to get them in a place of Africanism so they'll study all that together. Same as Dr. DeGruy and Francis Cress Wilson and many more. We have experts. So they're here. And when you hear me talking about it, it's not like we have to birth them and grow. They are here. We just got to get them together in one place and realize that is what we got to do.
Yes, this is very true. Piggybacking on some of what you said, when people think that we're not enterprising on economics and so forth.
Right.
I grew up in a town where I grew up in South Carolina, and our community had everything that we needed. Because we couldn't go to the white side of town to get most of the stuff we needed. We had our own stores, our own carpenters, our own plumbers, the whole kit and caboodle. And that was not just true of my hometown, but in most of the towns and places where Black people were, particularly in the South, we provided for ourselves. And I want to come back to that to go back even further. But what happened in part that took us further afield or adrift than where we were is so-called integration. Because when integration came in, when we think about integration with a different kind of mindset, we were fighting, and there's more nuances to this than this. We were fighting to get into their stores as businesses to spend our money.
Yes.
And we understand in part why that was, because of the dehumanization that was going on that characterized us. We wanted to obliterate that. But in doing that, we gave up and we started supporting their businesses over our businesses without a proper mindset that, no, our dollars stay in our community. And that's part of the education or the miseducation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that unraveled the whole thing. But even before that, when you go back to when we were emancipated and so forth, we have to look at what Black people were doing in America right after that. Extremely productive. We had our own, the Black Business Association.
Yeah.
We created our own churches and so forth. We had our own businesses. So it's not like we're not an enterprising people. So we have to go back and ask, well, why did those people and how did they do what they did? You have people that built colleges and so forth. And now we can't build a little small structure, it appears.
It appears. But I'm glad you said that.
What was going on with them that changed somewhere? Now, of course, right after that, you had this Jim Crow era, 100 years of second-class citizenship that helped to set us back, plus the education. The education that was designed was to continue to unravel us, to dismantle us further, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. So we have to think about, and then in many places we created stuff and they destroyed it.
Well, you
got massacres all over the country,
Exactly. That's what happened with us in most cases.
Right.
It's just that when we got out of slavery, if you will. We were more productive entrepreneurs because at that time they had not taken the will for us not to do those things. Once they saw how we were succeeding in spite of,
Mm-hmm.
well, like as they always do, they sat around and tried to figure out how then they can stop us from doing what we were doing. So when you hear the Black Wall Street, there was 100 or so Black Wall Streets around that were created by the so-called free slave, and we made it, and then they came in and took it from us. Now the point I'm trying to make with that is more than just the history of what they did. I want us to know that that had an effect, because that kind of thing can create stuff in your mind. I just think about what we are forced to, not just forced to, we accept it and we do it willingly. We
Mm-hmm.
create holidays, or we create uh, situations where we remember the bad things that happened to us. Just think of World War I, World War II, all those incidents. Every year we honor that. Because it means a lot to remember that. We remember that because we don't want to go back to that. But when they take our history away from us, that means to dismantle everything we ever knew. So when we see that we don't have those things that we had, the Black Wall Street and all the rest of the good things that we have, we forget that we did have them. And if we don't ourselves maintain that knowledge, if we don't
Right.
figure out some way to create a way for our little people, our little children to begin to understand where they came from, I may know, and I remember when I came here that all the black stores and the businesses that were around. But what about the children now? They don't even remember that. So we got to reconnect them with the history that we knew, and then they will know the reasons that maybe that we are not going forward, or it seems like we're not going forward as we speak today.
And we have to remember the reason they destroyed those things is going back to the title of my book, The White People Show.
Yeah.
When the white people show is threatened,
Mm-hmm.
they have to take action. And as many of our great leaders have said, and one particular, Dr. John Henry Clark, we did not understand white people and their intentions then, and we don't understand it now. This is why it's important to understand racism, because it is the crux. I say it is the umbrella under which you understand everything else.
Yeah.
Neely Fuller has gone so far to say that if you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it behaves,
Mm-hmm.
everything else that you think you know will not make sense.
Right. That is so true.
So we're trying to understand our situation, and we kind of like just kind of stepping over racism, white supremacy.
Yeah.
But that is the doorway. That's the whole crux of everything.
And
Once we understand that, we can begin to make sense. The fog begins to clear because we think that they want to help us. We think that they have our best interest in hand. We think that they love us, despite the fact that they show us over and over and over again that we don't. We will kill you in the street. We will
but
beat
you know
your
what,
women.
brother
Kill you.
Kamal? The point is the important thing is we shouldn't be looking for other people's love. See what it is. It's okay to love. I love people. They love me. That's good. But
Mhm.
it's the respect that you need and the ability to move yourself in a direction that you need to go in. Now, whether you love me or not, that's your business. But if you allow me to move in a direction that I need to go in, then we could get along. Because it goes to, we know that people do things based on what is best for them. When I say people, I mean some people do things what is
Right,
best for them. But when
right,
they see that you are interested in what is best for you, you may be able to work with them because what it is the mutual thing. Is what's best for me, what's best for you, best for you. Now, what we need to do as when I'm looking for the experts, because all of us don't know that. We really, many of us, I wrote the book, verbal healing. You'll hear those expressions even today. Well,
Mm.
we are our worst enemy. Well, we make excuses. Well, we don't do this or we don't do that. And that's legitimate, because why wouldn't you think that if you're suffering from syndromes? You know, when you've been over this in this world, in this country for 400 years, and people have been beating you over the head and telling you this, that, and the other, and if you don't come out affected, then you're not human, but you're a human being. So you're going to come out sometime with those things in your mind. I'm not this. I'm not good enough. We are worse enemy. We're like crabs in the barrel. I'm sure you hear that over and over again. So when you hear that, you know that we haven't got the message to our people that there are issues that we got to deal with. And when there was another the book that was written about mental illness. I can't think of the young lady's name. It was your doctor name, but the point she was making, she was the expert I'm referring to, because she had diagnosed, she had researched, she had gone, and she had brought back a solution. Guess what her solution? Her solution was reparation. The first thing, reparation, I'm saying reparation for mental illness. Yeah, because before you do any, you have to have money in this society to create and get anything done. So we know that if we got our reparation, that would take that go a long way in curing every other ill that we may have, because you would have the finances to do what the good doctor knew to do, but she didn't have the money to bring us to where she was, to diagnose us, to research us, to do what it needed to find out what's going on in the brain after you have been have to watch your parents hanged on a tree, after having watched your mother raped, after having watched your babies taken away from. Those are serious conditions that happen to us, and if we aren't true to that, if we don't know that as the beginning, we really won't know all this other stuff that's going on in our lives. So that's why I just keep stressing we need our expert, we need our people to come together on those issues. And I prayed, not coined the phrase, I borrowed the phrase Africanism to make us understand it's something that we got to realize, study from that perspective, study where we were before we came here. I mean, I've heard that enough, that we were the greatest. We were the greatest scientists. We were the greatest medical people. We built the pyramids. We were the greatest this or the greatest that. And if you look at us now, you'll say, well, now something happened between then and there. So we need those folks who can bridge that the difference and say, okay, this is what happened and this is why you are where you are now. Don't blame yourself. Don't use the word excuse. In my book, I said we need to discontinue that word excuse in our vocabulary, because it doesn't apply to us. Excuse is when you were born out of white privilege, and explanation is when slavery your background. You'll make an explanation if you say I can't become the prior to President Obama. He still can't become one now. But if I tell you I couldn't become the president, it wasn't an excuse. It was just an explanation. Now, if that white person could have been in the Appalachian, if he told you I can't be the president, that's an excuse. Because he could be whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to be. He just had to go beyond some things. So what I'm saying is there are things we got to really look at in terms of our beginning, the middle, and the end to find out what use our people who have gone that extra mile to study it. Like yourself, you've studied our history. You know our history. You know from whence we come. And you know what it's going to take for us to get to a point where we can look at all the incidents that's going on in our lives and say, that's the reason. Oh, that's the syndrome. Oh, that's the syndrome. I think I told someone last week about my pastor who, in one of his sermons, I think a couple of weeks ago, he explained the term weathering. I don't know if you ever heard it before. Weathering. They did a study on white women and white women and white men, their health situation compared to black men and black women. And they saw the difference. And you know what? One of the things that they came up with is he made the analogy of the police stop. As a black man, even the black women now, but as a black man, you know at 12 or 1 o'clock at night when you're riding that car out there and you see that flashlight flashing in back of you, you know, you get a feeling of no other feeling. It's fright. It's whatever, because you know what that represents. Am I going to get home tonight safely? Now, when that going through your head after, year after year, time after time, that affects you. And so that makes our health even different from theirs, because they don't have to go through that. Those are the kinds of incidents that I'm talking about that our experts got to come and study to see. We know that was weathering. Well, all the other things that we go through, what was that? What was that when I saw my dad hanged up on a tree, or when I saw my mom being raped, or when I saw my kids? I'm talking about our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? What was that? How would we define that? But we never had anyone do any study on us about any of that stuff. And we think then that we can just go along and get along. And that's what they tell us, get over it. That was then and this is now. But that's still haunting us even today. And with my book, Why Shouldn't I Cry? It brings me back to that title. What I meant was, if we have gone through all that, we see in this country how we recognize different incidents that happen and how we respond to them. On a yearly basis, we recognize 9/11 and we cry over it. We cry over the one. I mean, it should be, because it's painful. But what about what we went through? So when I say, why shouldn't I cry as a black woman, knowing what my ancestors, my history, then that tells you that if we recognize these things today and realize that they're important, then it must have been equally as important for us to recognize when our people were being hanged, our mothers were being raped, and we could not cry. We were forbidden to cry. Forbidden to cry. I saw something just last week. Dogs were ill-treated, and it was around a school, but the kids saw it, and it traumatized them, as it would. But what happened, the experts around, not the experts, but the authorities sent in people for them to help them through their trauma. Think about it. So if that could traumatize them like that, how about our young way back when they couldn't do anything about it? No one sent in anybody. No one sent them help. No one thought that they needed any kind of help. And when we see ourselves 400 plus years later, and to think that didn't affect us, that's the first order of business. That's the first thing we should recognize and say, oh, yeah, it did. We're great people now. Don't get me wrong. We're great, but we're not infallible.
In spite of it.
In spite of it. Exactly.
We're great. Two things you mentioned. Well, one thing in particular, reparations. We should have one voice with that. Every black person in America should belong to some organizations that's galvanizing the voice for reparations.
Yeah.
Just like years ago, people used to be a member of the NAACP and so forth.
Yes.
There are many organizations out there that are doing some serious work.
Right.
And you have people who are lawyers and so forth that are working on this. I work with one, Sister Nikita Taifa. She's been on this battlefront for years, and she brings together several of the different organizations that are working toward reparations to get the information out to our people that, hey, we should be crying for this. Whenever every black child should know what reparations mean.
Yes.
And what it's about.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be learning about this when you're 30 years old,
Exactly.
40 years old, and accepting the misinformation. That's number one. And like you said, reparations will go a long way to addressing our problems. We would have to determine how it will be used and so
Yeah.
forth. And that goes to the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I harp on it because I think it's the key, and that is education.
Yes.
But having our own education.
Yes.
Because going back to when we first got out of enslavement, we had our own educational facilities.
Yeah.
All the way up until the time that I was born. We had our own education,
Yeah.
pretty much. But it wasn't the independent Black education movement that existed, which is almost petered out at this point because of lack of support.
Yeah. And
We're depending on this educational system to do what only we can do. It's never going to do that. They're never going to include our history the way in which we want. We can beg them and plead with them until we.
That's where
force them. It's a waste of time.
Right. That's where I say the expert come in at. I don't mean just experts for experts' sake. I don't mean just expert because you got a Harvard degree. I mean those who have studied the Africanism I'm talking about. So they'll be deep into that. They know where, like you said, they know exactly where to go, how to go, and when to go to get us back to where we need to be. And one of the things with the reparation, see, since they've taken everything, and I won't say we don't have, they have taken everything from us. So if we got the cash money right now, we wouldn't have no choice. We have no choice but to go back and give it to the very people that have taken our very from us. That's why I said reparation in terms of goods and services. We can take our money now, don't leave that out, but put it aside. Our experts will know how to arrange so we can put our monies aside until we can regain all the goods and services that we can go back into our community and buy. But until that happens, we should have free schooling, free hospitalization, free housing, anything that we need should be free for us as part of that reparation. Because just to give us cash money, that's not going to do it right now. We don't have anywhere to put our cash money, but except back into the places that we got it from. So if we have free goods and services, that would be ongoing. That's what even they had at the beginning. There was free schools for white people up until a time, until we start getting into the schools. There was free, there was what they call welfare for us. It was what would they call it? Can't think of the word now. But it was a fancy name that they used. That was welfare, you know. But
it was affirmative action.
No, not affirmative action. Or assistant, or what was that called? Ooh, I can't think.
Welfare?
No. Lula, what was it called? But anyway, what it was welfare. Put it that way. But while they were getting it and using another name to have those beautiful homes out there off of the Hudson River there.
Yeah, when they created that town, when it came from World War II.
Yeah, I can't think of it now, but they know what it is.
That town that was created out there, it was these grants that they gave to.
But for us, it was called welfare. And with them was something else. I can't think of the name now. But in any case, what it is, we got subsidy. Yeah. Something simply. Yeah, subsidy. That's what it was. So they were getting all the subsidy and we were getting the, quote, welfare. But it was being done to them to elevate themselves. So we need that elevation. We have been stripped of, deprived of everything that a human being would need to elevate themselves. And if we think in 2023 all of this just going to come back to us, it's not. It got to be done in a way that the same as other folks who got reparation, we need reparation to start. That's what we need. Then we wouldn't need affirmative action.
Yeah. I say stop arguing for affirmative action and say replace affirmative action with reparation.
Yeah,
because that is the
we wouldn't need that. If we had a reparation, we would go into doing just what we did when we came out of slavery with all what we put together. You just said it: the schools, the churches, everything, our own neighborhoods, our own businesses. We had everything, and we did it ourselves. Right. And that's what we have really got to do.
We have to think too. Do we want to just be a replication of white people? Because when we say education and churches and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
synagogues or whatever, why are we using them as a model?
Mm.
We have to change the mindset. But in terms of the reparations,
Mm-hmm.
we know that the majority of our people are going to squander it, just like you said, and give it back to them. There has to be a small number of us, and there's always a small number that's going to lead the masses,
Mm-hmm.
has the mindset that when they do get those reparations,
Mm-hmm.
they use them wisely for the masses.
Yeah.
They're going to be the ones that are going to set up the schools.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the ones that are going to uh, revamp the education or provide our people with the necessary education and the mental health services that they need, because
Right.
we'll have the wherewithal to do that.
And even if
It's
we
going to
didn't,
be those
yeah,
few. The masses of them are going to just
yeah,
kind of
yeah. But
squander
even if we didn't
their
squander,
stuff.
just for instance, someone gave me $1 billion right now. I said, Ruby, I'm gonna give you reparations. This is your $1 billion. And I go out and say to myself, I want to get my African attire. I want to get my daughter. I have to go to their shops. That's what I'm saying. So I wouldn't be squandering it. Just
Right.
and if I said, I just want to go get me some, buy my some food today.
That's because we
I
don't
have
understand.
to
Well,
go to
see,
their
I would say
stores.
take the money, because you know what I would do with the money.
Mm.
Part of the money that I would get,
What you and I would do with it. But
I
I'm
would
saying
buy
the
gold
and
and silver
right.
and land.
Exactly, but I mean the masses of our people. There are some of us; those are there. You're the expert I'm talking about, but not. We are all not experts in the area of Africanism. And all I'm saying is, for those folks who don't get it quite yet, we got to protect them too. Same as anything
Right.
else. The masses going to always need the protection of those who may have the answer to some of the stuff. So I'm saying to you,
Yeah.
if I got it, I may hold on to it. But if I need food, I'm going to have to go out and get food. And if I'm in
Right.
my area, then I go to Twin City and go there. It doesn't belong to us. You see what I mean?
Right.
Or I go
Right.
to
We're going to do that,
a
but even
food
but
town
going
that doesn't
beyond
belong.
that, yeah, we need the food.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to buy food, whatever we need. But I'm thinking about, I want to farm. I want to grow my own food. And we got to teach our people.
Then you are the expert I'm
grow
talking
your
about.
own food.
You are the expert I'm talking about. See, but everybody, I may not have thought about that. That's why we need a group of people, not just one or two, but a group of people we call under the umbrella of Africanism, who would think the way you think for me. Because I may not think that way. And if there's a group of people who, because this country doesn't think that way, we have a president, one president for millions of people. So it means that you do have to have a sort of someone out there making decisions for you. So we know we need our experts to make decisions for us, not just anyone. I don't need Kanye West. I don't need any of those folks that they've been grabbing off the street to talk for us. I don't need Clarence Thomas. I don't need any. Matter of fact, as much as I love my President Obama, he was a great man. But he wrote the book, My Brother's Keeper, I think he wrote. And a lot of the young black men were just a little bit offended because what he implied in the book was that they was responsible. He said, don't stop making excuses or something. He meant no harm, but he wasn't the expert. The expert would tell you, Dr. John Henry Clark or someone like that would tell you, no, that's not an excuse. That's just a mindset from 400 years plus of being bombarded with racism or discrimination. And if you notice, when I talk about these issues, I don't necessarily talk about the physical. I'm talking about the mental. Not talking about the physical, what they did to us physically. What they did to us mentally is enough for us to create a whole new people that's not thinking properly. So that's what I mean when I say we got to get our experts together, recognize that we do need someone other than ourselves to make the decisions about first of all, what has happened to us, and try to diagnose things that we can get through it. And once we do that, we're home free. But until we do that, you're going to continue to hear what I have in my book, why we're this and why we're that and all that other kind of stuff we say about each other.
Yeah.
You know? But it's coming. It's getting there because I think God has put me here for one reason. At this stage of my life, he didn't just get me out of my bed to do nothing. Get me out of my bed to make these kind of commitment to impart this information from an amateur point of view, so we can get our experts together so they can know that we are in need of trying to get a fix on, and the syndrome that Dr. DeGroot talks about, post-traumatic syndrome and all, that's what we're suffering with now. Now, I don't see my folks up here, so I'm so glad for those of you who calling in. I mean, to checking me out here. No, okay. All right. So, brother Kamal, this is something that we're going to have to continue because, as I said before, there's so much that we didn't even think about yet. I was at a podcast over the weekend. It was called the 5th Annual African Podcast. A great experience. Great experience. All the folks there trying to learn something. It was indicative of what I talk about on my show. We was like amateurs trying to learn a little stuff from the experts. And they were very young people that was very helpful in giving us the ins and outs of the podcast business, showing us the, the do's and the don'ts of it. But it was reflective of my show here. We amateurs went to look for experts. And that's what I'm trying to convince people, that there's nothing wrong with saying you're amateur in certain areas. A lawyer is an expert in medicine. I mean, a amateur in medicine. A medical doctor is an amateur in legalese. So we are, some of us are expert in certain areas, and it has nothing to do with your level of intellectual knowledge. You could be a Harvard graduate, but it doesn't mean that you're an expert in Africanism. You would have to have studied it thoroughly from the beginning to the middle and to where we are now, to know first of all, what happened to us through the process, how it happened, the degree to which it happened, and all that other stuff that will allow you to then come up with what I would call a cure,
You speak of a cure. One of the persons, and you pointed out a little while back, we already have the examples. We're just not using them. We haven't pulled them together. Sister Marva Collins in Chicago has given us a superlative example of what can be done. And her story, she was teaching in the public school system, and the children they have certain children that they would reject because they were bad behavior. They thought they couldn't learn, and so forth and so on. And what she started doing is having those children to come by her house. It was like 3 or 4 or 5 of them initially to come over to her house, and she began to teach them. And she ultimately ended up with the Marva Collins system of education.
Yeah.
And she taught hundreds of children that were the rejects. Now, why haven't we taken her? Well, what did you do there? And she has it. It's written out. What did she do there? How was she able to get those kids, those children, to a level where many of them went to Ivy League colleges?
Yeah.
Afterward. So we have the model if we want, like, for the education. Hey,
yeah, we definitely have. We have those who have done the job, but I'm saying we got to get them together, got to know under one roof and say, hey, this is what we call Africanism. Name it, claim it. I'm so glad that Juanita watching, Robert Cabbage Stock, Rose Cabbage Stock. I'm so glad you're all watching and listening. Sheila, Paul Green, please continue to watch. John Williams, you're watching. And so many of you, I'm just so grateful. Always when I see you all paying attention, and always share. Share and make your friends watch, okay? And not make them watch. Tell them that I'm on. And they
make them come to the altar.
Yes, come to the altar. That's brother. Come on. I tell you, I'm always so grateful because I feel that I'm doing something, the Prince Chadir Shaka, thanks for watching, and 20 others, they say. I'm just, it's coming along. But what happened, we're just going to have to continue to get this information. And I said before that God has put me here. I know for a fact that He's put me here. He didn't have me wake up this time of the morning, afternoon, 4 o'clock, to bring you all this information. He just said, Ruby, this is what you're going to do. This is what I have you to do the time that you have left. And I so appreciate Him, you know. Try to impart some, not disseminate the knowledge, but I got me a good brother coming along with him, my co-host, Brother Kamal Kenyatta. He's the professor, and he's been doing it for years, so he knows what he's talking about. We're just going to we're going to continue to push this information for you to receive. I think I told you last week we have created a homeschooling for the little kids in our area, K through 6. And we have older ones too coming along because they want to learn about themselves. And what we're trying to do is start it from home. That we want to encourage all of you African people, make sure that you teach your children their history. At least we have Governor DeSantis and others trying to destroy that. They will take the information away from our schools, our kids, because they don't. Oh, well, they said they don't want theirs to be intimidated. Now, we have suffered over the years, but they don't want theirs to be intimidated. Well, you got to be intimidated if the teaching is real, and if it's real, it's real. And what has happened to us as African people is very real, and it has nothing to do with trying to intimidate anyone. It's trying to get the history out, so at least we go back and repeat it. We don't want to go back and repeat it. Now, I must tell all of you all, too, my producer just showed me, I should advise you that if you enjoy this show and want to contribute, this is Cash App me, Ruby Shivers. I think it's the $ Ruby Shivers or Zelle. I'd appreciate it so much because it does take a little something to keep these shows on the road. And we're going to continue to do that as long as we can because we know that it's important. It's the time right now for us as African people to get a new idea, a new understanding of who we are, where we came from, and where we got to get back to. Brother Kamal, got anything else to say before we finish here?
No, I'm pretty much, my heart is clear.
Your
as
heart
they
is
say.
clear. Okay.
I appreciate you having me
Okay.
today.
I tell you, I'm just so pleased. I told you about the sister that had me on last week at 9 o'clock. I didn't tell you about it at the moment, but you can always
I
catch it.
see it on the website. I saw that.
Did you?
Stuff.
Did you? She's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased with her. She was such a doll. I mean, they make me feel so good, They're so royal, So I can continue to appreciate my young folks and just keep watching. Go. That's what we got to get to. Got to get to the youth to make them carry on the ideas that we know is important for us to change our direction, change our direction. So we appreciate you so much, and I think this is the end of our show, but it's certainly not going to be the end of the conversation, and we're going to keep it going. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
God bless.